Hey guys, right now I'm going to be recording the Ministry Progress Summary through December 4th, 2022. So this was the cycle that had Thanksgiving break in here. I took a day off from work and I didn't actually make too much progress on the ministry front. I had a lot of the daily progress summary videos I wanted to catch up on and kind of like writing up a lot of research that I'd done the week before. So I actually didn't end up doing a lot of ministry stuff over that long weekend that I had there. And then another thing that I did was I ordered some additional things. So I got another projector for the office and a screen to go with it, and another standing desk and monitors to go on it as a sort of speaking podium for the living room. And we'll go over that in one of the slides here today. But I was researching those things, and then I bought those things, and I had to set up those things, and so. Maybe it all sounds like excuses, but still kind of a lot on the practical side here, and so not too much progress. I did end up making a script for the videos. A script to process the videos, not a script for the videos, and so that will help me automate some of the workflow a bit, and hopefully that will help me kind of sustain the throughput longer term. But that's about it on the ministry side. Now, I am going to be making a couple changes in terms of the things that I focus on, and we'll get to that kind of towards the end of this video here, kind of about what I'm going to be doing in the short term moving forward, just so hopefully that I'm a little bit more motivated as we do things. So with that, we'll hop into the slides for today, and we'll go over everything that got done on this cycle through the 4th of December. All right, so I've kind of clustered things on the slides here into the practical matters that I got done, some thinking and decisions that I made, some conversations that I had this cycle, and then the work that I did on making that shell script that I mentioned to help me kind of automate the video processing in my workflow. And then, of course, we'll go over kind of what I'm planning on doing in the short term here. So in terms of practical stuff, this is not super ministry related, but again, something from my personal life, trying to set good habits, keep up with a schedule so that I can kind of have better consistency over time. So this is just sending some automated email reminders for me. So things like taking supplements, working out, things like that, just setting up some daily reminders to try to stick with a better schedule and stuff. And that should have some carryover benefits towards the work that I do on the ministry front as well. So this is what I mentioned during the intro here, kind of buying some additional practical items to continue chipping away at my final plan for the house. So I got a second low input lag projector, so the one that's out in the living room that will be kind of used during Bible study presentations. It's a big projector. It's a ultra short throw, 150-inch screen that I have out there, but it has pretty high input lag, like maybe 50 milliseconds, 60 milliseconds, even in its game mode. And so that's kind of a lot for using it as a computer monitor full time. And so I got a different projector here to use in the room with the treadmill. And so this way I'll be able to work when I'm walking on the treadmill. That's been a big kind of desire of mine for several years, actually. I couldn't use the treadmill when I was in the apartment. And then when I started using it in the house, I decided that the TV that I had, even though it's pretty big at 65 inches, is still not as ideal as a much larger projector screen in terms of making the text big enough so that you don't have a disadvantage when you're walking. So I got the second projector and another screen for it. I will start using it in the office here soon enough. And then the other thing, and this is more on the ministry side, I got a standing desk here, and I'm going to be using this as kind of a speaking podium out in the living room. It's got some caster wheels, so I can kind of wheel it somewhere out of the way when we're not doing the presentations, but I got a couple cheap 24-inch IPS panel monitors as well. Those will be like where I have my notes and stuff when I am talking, when we have Bible studies and stuff out in the living room. And so this is kind of like the presenting setup here, again, with wheels on the standing desk so that the speaking podium can kind of be wheeled out of the way when it's not in use. And so I had to do some research to figure out what I wanted for all of these things. I was taking advantage of the sales that happened over the holidays. That's kind of why the timing is now, because I managed to save some money on these things that I was going to buy anyway. So this was one practical matter that took some time here, this cycle. And then, of course, once these things arrived, I had to set things up. And so I had previously had like the treadmill assembly with the standing desk above the treadmill and everything like that. I previously had that set up in the master, but I was moving this to the office because that's where the new projector and screen will be. And so I cleared out all the stuff in the office, which took a good long time because there was already furniture in there, a couch, the filing cabinet, a bed even. So I cleared everything out, and then we vacuumed the room and stuff, and then I set up the new projector screen, got it, kind of leaning against the wall in the proper configuration, and then got the projector set up as well, moved a chair in there, so now it's kind of like a second mini theater setup, but primarily going to be using this as a computer monitor for when I work. And so in doing these things, I organized some other stuff in the master bedroom too to get the chair out of there. We had to move a bookcase. In fact, my primary bookcase has a lot of stuff on it, which means that all those books had to come off and go on the floor until I redistributed things. So I had to move a lot of furniture around when we were doing these things. And in fact, I'm still not completely done sort of setting everything back to rights. There's still a bed chilling in the living room right now, and that's fine. But, I had a lot of setup to do to get this projector set up. And again, maybe this isn't super interesting here on the ministry side, but going over all of this because this will help me kind of sustain working on content, especially in the evening when I'm a little bit more tired. I can just walk reasonably slowly on the treadmill while I work. It helps keep me alert. And also I just get some extra exercise in there, makes me more likely to stick with things. So I'm not quite done setting this up. I still need a way to be able to sit, like to alternate between sitting and standing, because that is helpful for if you walk for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes or something, and you want to take a break for 10 minutes sitting down. I need a way to do that, and I'll have to figure that out. And there's a couple other things, but very much closer on this front here. And so for the short term, I'm just going to still keep using the standing desk and the TV that I was using as a computer monitor before until I get all of this set up, but made a lot of progress here this cycle. So I'll stop going there. This is, like many of the cycles previously, still a lot on the practical front. I'm still trying to set myself up for success in the long term, and so not going to overly belabor any of the points here, but this is just stuff on the practical front. So in terms of thinking and decisions, anyone who watches the daily progress summaries here, right around this time, I had the treadmill set up in the master bedroom and the recording setup here with the webcam and everything that I've mentioned the last couple cycles was actually on the desk above the treadmill. And so I was actually recording some videos of me walking on the treadmill when I was doing the daily progress summaries, and I kind of decided just that the motion's a bit distracting when I'm recording videos here. So first off, shooting at 1080p, actually the webcam I have doesn't support 60 frames per second. So it's not like it's super choppy, but you can notice that. And the bigger deal here is just that when I'm walking, it just like the movement kind of draws the eye, and maybe it's a bit distracting for when I'm making content. So I actually already wasn't planning to make like ministry content videos when I was walking, just because I knew this a little bit, but it's a little bit more pronounced than I thought it was. And so I've kind of just thought that just for the sake of video quality, I probably just won't walk when I'm recording videos. The noise was actually really minor. I had been a little bit worried about that it'd pick up the treadmill noise or my footfalls on the treadmill, but that actually turned out to not be a problem. In fact, the program that I use to automatically cut out silence doesn't even register it as noise, so it's below the threshold for that. But it's really just kind of like the visual thing of it's a little distracting to have movement and stuff constantly in the frame, rather than just, a shot of me, talking into the webcam, which is just a little bit more natural, I think. And so that's kind of what I've decided on. I spent some time thinking about that before I made that decision here. Now, perhaps somewhat more importantly, I've decided to start posting some new written content. And so this is kind of a big deal because so far I've been really focused on all the setup matters, and I've been trying to get kind of the stuff scaffolded for the video series that we already have up here, but I'm just kind of burning out on that. I've known this for a while. I was trying to only get through like a limited set, but even doing the 15 videos or so that I'd had planned for myself here, I just don't know if it's really realistic. I have been working on these things for a while now, and just my motivation levels are not super high just because it's kind of tedious, busy work, and it doesn't make me excited to get up in the morning and do this sort of thing. So because of this, I think I just want to get on with things so that I don't stall here. We're really close. The ministry's been launched. I'm just kind of not done so much on the content side yet because I keep trying to get everything ready. And I think I'm just going to start making stuff. And, I will continue the plans with the videos here eventually. I'm just going to try to space things out a bit more so that I don't burn out so hard on all the boring stuff that I have to do. Kind of all of the framework, the procedure, the processing and organization of the videos. It's just not very interesting stuff to do. And because I had to catch up, because I'd had a couple years of recordings here, having it all front loaded is just not doing good things to my motivation levels. And so what I'm going to do instead is just start posting some written content, hopefully, a couple things every cycle here. And that will kind of help hopefully reset my tolerance here to some of the busy work that I will still need to do eventually. It's just, I'm not going to try to have so much of it done up front here. And so this is kind of the really big important decision. There's one thing you take out of things that happened in this cycle is probably going to be this, that I have kind of made the decision here to backburner some of the setup stuff a bit more and try to actually start making new content. And so it's going to be written content. I'm not going to be doing videos because that's exactly the sort of organization that I've been dragging my feet on here, but at least new written content, hopefully for the next few cycles here. All right, so that's some of the decisions and stuff that I had. Also had some longer conversations this cycle. So I had a pretty long conversation with a good friend of mine about kind of how to handle difficult Christian relationships. So if we have a brother or sister and we talk about theology together, what happens during theological disagreements when the other person maybe is a bit judgmental of your position or assumes things about you and things like that, so that any discussion of your different perspectives kind of leaves you feeling like you're being constantly attacked, rather than kind of having a two-way conversation about the truth, which is, of course, what we should always keep things centered on. So when you're having discussions with people and it ends up just getting personal, even though you don't want it to, how do you kind of handle this in the ideal way? So it's a very good question. I mean, we all have relationships in our lives, especially family as well. And how do you have serious conversations about the truth when there's at least an element of disagreement in it? And kind of how to best do that. So another conversation here, I chimed in on a WhatsApp conversation, from our WhatsApp group about the parable of the talents and the parable of the minas and applications relating to the themes contained in these parables. So it's kind of vague, but, it spanned over some things and, a few responses one of these evenings here. And then another good friend and I had several long back and forths on the interpretation of the first 4 verses of Matthew chapter 4. So this is during the temptation of Christ, and specifically this is the first temptation where Satan tempts Jesus to turn stones into bread. And so what happens is that, Jesus says that, we need to rely on the Word of God, right? That is our sustenance. And so he doesn't do it. And one of the things that theological principles in play is called kenosis, which is the idea that as a human being, Jesus emptied himself of his divine power. It doesn't mean that he wasn't God, but he did not take advantage of his full divinity and kind of go through life on easy mode, so to speak. And so he, despite having fasted, did not do this, and rather, after the test was over, angels tended to him. That's what the passage says. But the specific points that we were talking about here from this passage were kind of noting his restraint, and again, the doctrine of kenosis and what it means for Jesus to have not taken advantage of his divine power, even though he had a legitimate need for food. Food is a legitimate necessity for us as believers here in this world. It's one of the things that we work for to support ourselves. So it's not like food is bad or evil or anything. So why wouldn't he feed himself in this way? And so because of that idea of restraint and kenosis, what we were mostly talking about was, can we take this principle of restraint, even restraint in things that are necessary or even good, and can we apply that to our own lives? So timing is very important in life. And so that's kind of one of the things we were talking about here. Now, this conversation spanned other things as well. It turned into, a little bit wider. We covered some other topics, but this was kind of the initial and the central topic in the discussion that we were having. So I don't really think my friend and I disagree too much. We were just kind of coming into it from different places, and we had a good discussion about this passage there. So that was another conversation. I mean, I'm glossing over it a bit here, but, not terribly concise. So, ended up being paragraphs and paragraphs, either way from both of us. But, this was another conversation that happened this cycle. And then on the actual ministry side of things here, this is something that I'd mentioned as one of the big to-dos in the last cycle, was that I wanted to write a script to help me automatically process the videos. And so people who are interested can read through the process that I have here. This is the 4 steps that I have in the video workflow to process things. So after I record a video, these 4 things happen to kind of standardize the video content, get the audio to the same loudness, and then let me edit it. So the screen recording software that I'm using right now, it's called Snagit. It only records in variable frame rate, which saves space, which I don't really care about because I have plenty large enough hard drive for it, but it makes it harder to do video editing, and having constant frame rate is necessary to have a constant amount of time cut out when you're removing silence using the other package that I use to help me automatically edit these videos. And so these are the steps here, and what I did basically was I wrote a script in Bash, which is a shell scripting language that kind of chains all these commands together and runs one right after the other on the file. And so I do save the intermediate steps, so there's some intermediate files. After each step, I move them into backup directories so that I still have access to those if I ever want to. If something seems weird with a file, I can go see what step things might have got messed up in or whatever. Now, eventually, I'll clean these out every once in a while, probably. But the basic gist is that rather than having to sit there and babysit it and then run 4 commands on the command line, I just run my shell script on the file, and I can walk away and make a sandwich or take a shower or whatever and come back, and then my video files will be done. Now, I can actually do this on more than one file at once if I have a set of them. Now, it will run on everything in the directory. That's how I've set the script up. And so when I was working on this, I also set up some aliases in Bash for specific directories, like CDing into them as a kind of shorthand. It makes it a lot faster for me to get to the content directories for the ministry site, for example. And so all of these things together kind of help reduce the time opportunity cost that goes into making videos and wrangling them on the command line, because that's how I've been processing things. And so this should help kind of in terms of long-term throughput, making that sustainable so that I don't, kind of some of the things relating to videos here, just trying to make everything easier so it's easier for me to stick with over time. And so this was a goal. It took me a while. I don't, the languages that I use most formally in my day job as a software engineer are TypeScript and C#. And outside of that, personal projects, I've mostly used Python 3. And so I don't like writing long programs in Bash. I think it's kind of ugly, but it let me do the things that I wanted to do here. So I just had to Google around a bit until I found answers to some of the questions for the things I was trying to do. But I was successful eventually, and so this should help me as I process videos and stuff moving forward. All right, so that brings us to the upcoming work and the things that I'm planning on doing in the short term here. So I mentioned this in one of the slides back here, kind of a change of plans. So the last couple cycles I've been planning to kind of keep making progress on the next few videos in the SR4 series and organizing them and getting them all done, and then finishing the documentation page for discussion pages on the site. And all of this is kind of the boring tedium of the busy work that I mentioned, documentation and organizing videos that already exist and stuff. It's nothing new. And so for that reason, I've had a hard time getting myself to stick with this. And so my plan now, at least for the short term, this won't be permanent, but at least for a while, to try to kind of reset my tolerance to some of the boring stuff that I've been on for the last few months, is I'm just going to start working on building out some new written content. So I know from past experience that I just find this a lot more interesting to do. So I think I'll have an easier time of things doing this, at least for a while I am kind of, again, trying to reset my tolerance for the boring stuff. So I have plenty of places to start. I have a lot of stuff that I've talked with other people about. So my mentor, friends, a couple theology debate groups that I participate in with friends from college, things like this. Many conversations I've had over the last few years over email, WhatsApp, the forum, Discord, in-person conversations, texting, you name it. Lots of discussions about the truth. So plenty to kind of mine from to get me going here. And I think I will be holding off on a formal series for a while. I have several ideas for kind of, even aside from the SR4 series, which I will hopefully continue and finish at some point, kind of big series of my own that are kind of formal and a longer sequence of teaching that goes kind of all builds on itself. So that requires a good bit of planning and organization, outlining and stuff. And I'm kind of, like I said, burnt out from all the organization stuff. And so if that's the thing making me drag my feet to begin with right now, I don't really want to start something new that involves all of that. And so my plan here for the short term is just to get going with whatever catches my eye out of the big backlog of stuff that I have that I could be writing about. So like I said, lots of possible topics from the conversations I've had over the last few years. And so that's kind of what I'll be mining from to get me going here as I start to hopefully write new content. Again, this is just going to be written content, not going to do videos for now. Just going to be getting more content on the site, giving myself a chance to kind of breathe here while fleshing out some of what this ministry has up to offer at the moment. Because right now, I mean, there's a few things up, but quite a bit less than what I have in draft form. And so I'm going to be trying to polish things so that I can actually get a little bit more published on the site. And so hopefully this will hold me for a while here, maybe several months at least, before I kind of brave the busy work again and try to get all of that done. Because once I do get that done, I'm hoping that I'll be able to sustain it more and it won't be such a drag because I won't have to do so much of it at any one point in time. At least that's the hope. But given that I do have a lot of it to do up front, for now I'm just going to kind of give myself a break from it so that hopefully I can just stay more motivated here in the interim. All right, well, I'll stop rambling there. That's going to be the plan here for the short term. Going to be trying to, as I say, write some new written content here, probably more short form, maybe a couple pages rather than just one, but, certainly nothing coming to the amount of maybe 5 pages or 10 pages on a topic. Probably just 1 or 2 here for most of these topics here. And so that's going to be the plan for the next bit. And so hopefully this will be more exciting for people who are following. This will actually be content finally, rather than just ever more on the setup front, which that will come to an end. It's a finite process here, but that really kind of has been the name of the game for the last several months here. But hopefully now content, this will be more interesting for those of you who are keeping up with what's going on here, and hopefully things can kind of expand a bit from here. And so that's the plan here for the short term. Turn the webcam back on here. And with that, I think that's where I'm going to wrap this ministry progress summary. So this was stuff through December 4th. We do have the holidays coming up here. I will be taking time off from work to go see my family and stuff, but it has happened that the last couple years since I've been employed full time, that anytime I have a big break, so that's Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe 4th of July, if I take several days off, I always end up getting a lot more ministry stuff done on the bigger breaks than I do over weekends and stuff, just because it lets me kind of get my mind out of work more. And so I'm going to be having maybe a week and a half. I'm not taking all of it off. I'll be working from my parents' house for some of it, like at least half days. And hopefully I'll be able to get a lot done on the ministry front while I have this break of time, kind of splitting up the monotony of work more. And so I kind of have grand plans here, hopefully for that period of time. And especially now that I'm not going to be kind of so stuck on the boring stuff, but moving into generating new content for the next little bit, I'm hoping that together these things will combine and, maybe I'll actually have kind of a lot that gets put out. And I don't want to make promises because, I'm trying to balance it in a sustainable way, but in any case, that will be the plan here. I mean, I guess that's not quite the next 2 weeks, but, that's coming up. So that's what's on my mind here. And then eventually, soon hopefully, we'll start going to more in-person stuff and start getting the Bible study set up at the house as well. So that's a little bit wider. Those have been my plans for a while here, but we're getting closer to that, especially as we start to make new content here. So I'll stop rambling. This was the ministry stuff that got done through December 4th. I'll talk to everyone again next time.